The risk obviously is not so great for him in terms of winning Colorado in the general election, because that wasn't really destined to happen in any case. There hasn't been a Republican who won that state since 2004. But nonetheless, it sets a precedent for the other states, and there will be, no doubt, a number of other states deciding the same issue about whether or not Trump can appear on the ballot. And for those in those states where there's actually a viable race, which is most states in the country, it will actually have a significant effect. Because if other states are going to rule that Trump can't be on the ballot, and we have a situation where it's obviously a very closely divided electorate, it could be the difference whether he wins or loses.
How do you see this situation faring out in the Supreme Court?
Well, it's really hard to say. This is a completely novel question. This has never gotten to the Supreme Court, even involving someone of a lower level, let alone a presidential candidate and former president. So I think it's quite complex because the issues have never been addressed. There have been some lengthy dueling law review articles trying to explain the meaning of the provision. It's the insurrectionist clause in the 14th Amendment, Section 3. The vast bulk of scholarly opinion is that President Trump is squarely within the sights of that provision. But there are those questions are open, and we can only think that the Supreme Court is going to have to approach them anew.
Are there other states that you're aware of that are maybe in advanced stages of doing something similar to what Colorado did?
Well, there is an appeal from a ruling that kept Donald Trump on the ballot that is going up, I believe, in Michigan to their Supreme Court. So that one could pose a problem for him. Michigan is a fierce battleground state. So and I think the advocates and the voters who've been bringing these cases are surely looking at every opportunity now to make to use the Colorado ruling as a precedent, because it was very thorough, it was very thoughtful. So it will be weighed very carefully by other state courts.
Can we backtrack for a second? What does it actually mean that Trump is not on the ballot?
Well, it will be an empty line, I suppose. I mean, they haven't printed the ballots. This is still for the primary in Colorado. And it will mean that the other Republican candidates will be listed and Donald Trump will not.
This is only for the primary, or he can't appear in any election for public office?
It will be any election. Right now, it's just the primary. And the court itself, the Colorado Supreme Court, has held its opinion until early January because it's very possible the Supreme Court will decide whether to take an appeal and will rule very quickly. But after January 4, it will go forward.
Caroline, what is the kind of the real legal argument that if it gets to the Supreme Court, or maybe put just simply, what did the state of Colorado court find? That A, he was an insurrectionist, and B, the Constitution says insurrectionists can't be elected to office? I'm a little unclear as to the legal issue.
Well, so there are two elements here, and it's basically that for someone who has taken an oath to the Constitution, they cannot be an officer of the United States. So that is, Donald Trump took an oath to the Constitution when he was president, and then under the factual analysis of the trial court, he engaged in insurrection, and that judge used the January 6th report and its extensive evidence of the ways in which former President Trump had been fanning the flames of the insurrection to find that he had engaged in insurrection. But that judge, on the legal question, which is Donald Trump, is the president one of those officers that is barred from being a candidate? And it seems pretty clear, I think, to most people that the president is an officer of the United States. But that's the legal question.
All right, if we step out kind of and look at former President Donald Trump's legal issues en masse, where is the greatest risk, do you think, to him, I guess, as it relates to the election, not personally, I guess, but just in terms of his ability to run and potentially, be elected?
Well, I really think the actually biggest risks to him are the other cases. I mean, it's certainly an important finding that he engaged in insurrection. Really just taking up what the January 6th Commission had already done. But I think the other cases, the Georgia case involving election interference, and the case in D.C. involving January 6th and election interference, I think those are the ones that are really could well bite him, because even the most hardcore MAGA voters may start to question their candidate if there's a rock solid criminal case against him and it's moving forward and he's losing.
And just one final question here, Caroline. Does he get good representation? I mean, it just seems like I don't know any of the firms that he hires for these various things. They're not firms I've ever heard of. And do you think he gets quality representation?
Well, I think just ask Rudy Giuliani how he's doing. I think he's got some big bills right now, and I don't see Donald Trump stepping in to pay them. So, I think, one of the problems is the kind of relationships he's had with lawyers over the years haven't really meant that those lawyers have been able to succeed in their businesses. So I think a lot of very more serious, reputable lawyers have stepped